Happy New Year to everyone. Nice to see you all here, or all those who are here, I should say. Welcome to the Tynedale Local Area Council meeting on Tuesday, the 11th of January 2021. Just a couple of reminders, please. Make sure your phones are on silent and microphones off, please, if you're not speaking. Yep, brilliant. Okay. Item 1 on the agenda is to note that following the by-election in the Hexham East Ward on the 16th of December 2021, Suzanne Holly Fairless-Aiken was elected and become a member of the local area council. Which, in case you don't know, I think you've seen that full council. Put your hand up, Suzanne, please. Hello. Yeah, that's Suzanne over there. Okay. It also says on item 1 that on the 5th of January 2022, the County Council will appoint a new vice chair, which will be reported at this meeting. 2 reasons that hasn't happened. There is a review of the local area council's committees, and that was supposed to be reported on Wednesday's meeting, but of course it didn't go to the meeting, and that is why that has to then go to the remuneration panel to decide if they agree with what's been gone on in the review. If they agree with the review, then there may or may not be a need for a vice chair. You've all seen that. I mean, you had the reports on Wednesday anyway, so you know all about that. But that is why we're not doing that today. Okay. Item 2. Any apologies for absence, Nicola?
I haven't received any.
Okay. I've been made aware that Councillor Horncastle wasn't very well today, so I suspect, seeing he's not here, that I'll give his apologies on his behalf. And he's not here, is he? I can't see him now. Does anybody else know who else is missing, by the way? Is that it? Have we got the full lot, have we? Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Right then, has anybody got any disclosures of members' interests? Fantastic. Item 4. Any public questions?
No, Chair, we've not been made aware of any.
This is the way I like the meetings to go. We're now going to move on to item 5, which is the petitions. Do we have any petitions? Receive any new petitions?
No, I've not been made aware of any.
Okay. Consider reports and petitions previously received. We don't have any of them, I believe. And receive any updates? No updates? No updates? No. Okay. Right. I'll just get it. What's happening with the... Are we going to wait for Councillor Sanderson or what?
Have you got anything else on your...
I can put local services in now if you want. Okay. Right, boys, I know you've been asked to go forward and back and forward and back, but if you don't mind, we have David and Andy here, so who wants to go first? Yeah. Okay. David Hunt. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Right, well, I think we've managed to successfully meet the challenges that 2021's thrown our way. And once again, over the Christmas period, our refuse staff were out providing essential services across that time, along with our street cleansing operatives as well. In the run-up to Christmas, and Andy will probably elaborate on this a bit, we'll all be aware that early December we had Storm Arwen, which presented an awful lot of work in terms of clear up, most importantly on the highway, but then across parks, open spaces as well. We've worked with highways and with the countryside tree teams just to do everything we can to clear away debris. We're working with contractors as well. We've still got extra sweepers in to just clear up what debris remains, but pretty much on top of that issue now, I would say. So I just, like to put on record my appreciation for the huge efforts of our frontline staff again over this the previous year. What does continue to be a difficult period. Obviously, we've got the new wave of COVID coming through. Mercifully, so far, that hasn't affected us massively, although it's always something that's a bit of a spectre there that might cause problems. As of today, we have 3 staff members off across neighbourhood services. I think across the whole service, there's about 20 odd county-wide. And all we can do is just continue that mantra of, you know, hand hygiene, social distancing, face covering, etc. You know, make sure the signage is up, make sure that everyone is adhering to that. So far for us, it hasn't had any impact on the essential frontline services, which is good. So as I say, on waste, we had the refuse collection service working over Christmas, and you know, that worked very well this Christmas. I know last Christmas period we had some problems with weather, and that continued throughout most of January. And barring some small problems in the sort of Upper East Allen Valley and Hexhamshire last week, we haven't had any real problems presented to us by that. We'll be starting this Friday this week, just a small extension in Hexham to the glass trial area. That's in Highford Park in Hexham. It's about 250 extra properties. And we're still on with the extra collections that we've been doing on the glass bring sites, because they continue to be very well used. And on the grounds maintenance, street cleansing side, really that has been sort of dominated by the clear up from the storm. I think we are getting to a stage now where we can do some more of our routine cutting back hedge, cutting back shrub, cutting back that sort of thing. So as ever, any issues around those sort of things, just get in touch with us. Leaf clearance is pretty much complete, although we've still got a few areas to tackle which we're aware of. And again, any that members are aware of, just drop me a line, let me know. And as I say, we'll have the additional sweeper in place just to help out with all of that debris from the storm. So it's amazing how quickly things roll around. We're already starting to the recruitment process for our seasonal staff for the summer grass cutting, which will be upon us in no time at all. So that's kind of what we've been up to and what we're on with at the moment.
Thank you very much, David. If I could obviously join you in thanking all your staff for the work they do, especially in the more trying periods, which are floods and storms and just general winter conditions, to be honest. Can I just ask about missing bin collections? Whenever there's a few bins not collected, and we know the reasons why, and I don't have it's not a critical statement, this, but invariably we get messages on social media going round and round and round, and or they'll contact us directly. I mean, what happens when the drivers come back and say we've missed this for a particular reason, say snow or ice or what have you? Do they report it to you, or do they just take it on their own back to do it the next day and add it to another route?
No, they report it to the office, either to me or the senior team leader. And then we put an alert on the council's website, which goes out on social media and on, you know, those sort of platforms. So hopefully that gets the message out there to those communities that we have missed. Generally on that, we'd put when we plan to be back, and 99% of the time that would be the following day. The only time that it wouldn't really is when it's been because of the road conditions, and perhaps they may not have improved in the next day, which is kind of what we had last week on some of the higher ground.
Yeah, I mean, that itself's fine, and obviously we probably all get that. Not all the residents get it from the... I mean, would it be worth, or is it possible to send that and make sure that the ward member gets it or something? Because we usually, I would imagine, we've all got a range of our own contact streams, like residents groups or things like that, so we could put it out beforehand, before all the social media starts trolling on and on and on.
Yeah, I mean, I can do that. Yeah, I mean, I think the email goes to pretty much everyone with a council email address as an alert, rather like the gritting alerts do. But so I don't know if everyone's getting them or not, but I can certainly send those. No,
I just know that sometimes I've had the residents asking before I've seen the alerts, sort of thing, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, not all the time. And as I said, it's no blame at all on the staff. It's just a way of appeasing the residents a little bit quicker, you know.
Yeah, I can certainly do that.
Councillor Riddle, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. You know, as portfolio holder, I want to certainly add my thanks, particularly to all the local services staff, but staff right across the council for the magnificent effort after Storm Arwen, particularly in the clear-up and the very quick response there, but also in the sustained effort, you know, right up till now. We're still clearing trees and repairing bits on roadsides, etc. And you know, we had all the parks and things to check for safety and all of that. That, you know, is unseen work to a lot of people, but you know, it's a really big thank you to them. I got a phone call, I think at 6:15 that morning, to say in Tynedale we had over 100 roads blocked, and in the county we had about 300 blocked. So it was an absolute massive job. But you know, we got through it pretty quickly. I know there was some community help as well, but you know, it was everybody pulled together. It was great. As far as the bins and the collections at Christmas, this was an unusual year because of when Christmas fell. Normally the bins collections just get shifted a day either side, but this time they got shifted quite a considerable time, I suppose. And really, you know, logistically there was 40,000 bin collections to be altered. And that was a huge job. So the fact that, you know, one or two might have got missed is, I think, you know, quite acceptable, but, you know, inevitable. You know, we're sorry for it, but I think they did a marvellous job.
I totally agree with you, John. Anybody else? Oh, yeah, sorry, Councillor Oliver.
Thanks, Chair. Just, I mean, I agree with everybody else's thanks. I mean, there were a lot of trees down in Corbridge Cemetery, and they were cleared, you know, immediately, and remarkably no gravestones were damaged. Can I just ask a question about policy? I'm in touch with one of your team about it. He's just responded to me today, but I missed his call. But there's a new estate in Corbridge next to the school that's being built at the moment, and the bin wagons aren't going in, presumably because the roads weren't sort of adopted. But there's now quite a bit of it. It's actually open, and there's a proper sort of route in and out, I think. So what's the sort of policy in terms of when bin wagons will sort of go into the into a new estate? Is there what kind of defines when it happens?
Well, it's difficult to encapsulate all of those sort of eventualities in a policy. I mean, generally, it's when the developers are no longer leading their vehicles in and out of an area. The developer sometimes, so a lot of the time this is about discussion with residents and the developer about the particular circumstances at that site. And I know we've had quite a few discussions with individual households on that, and it's an evolving sort of situation. I would say the best thing really to do is get in touch with us, and then we can go down and see at what stage the works are there, have a chat with the developer. Sometimes they'll help and draw bins out for residents, or it may be that there's an area that we've previously not gone into, but now the developer are saying it's safe to. So it is kind of on a case-by-case basis, and I know we have had a few residents from there in touch. Some areas we are going into now, some areas are still sort of off limits a bit, but it's an evolving situation, that development.
Okay, that's great. I'll get in touch with Tony tomorrow, and then I might give you a shout if there's any issues. Thanks.
Councillor Fairless-Egan.
Hello, yes, thank you for all your help over a tough winter season. I just wonder, what is your policy on residents clearing the wood themselves from roads? Because that's been happening a lot round our way. I mean, and it seems to be in the new middle class crime seems to be pilfering their own wood. And we had a few people where the road was blocked near us going to sort of attack a tree with a chainsaw. I don't know if they were driving around in the car with a chainsaw in it, but how do you deal with that issue? Are we allowed to sort of say, no, please leave it until you guys get here? Or have you encountered any problems with that before?
To be honest, for us, and that's collectively a highways and neighbourhoods thing, that isn't really causing us a problem, because it's just removing something that we would have to remove anyway. In almost all cases, or well, maybe not almost all, but in a large proportion of cases, the trees themselves probably are privately owned anyway. So it may well be that whoever owns that land has made those arrangements, and that's very public spirited of them to get their tree off our road. So it would then be difficult to ascertain, well, is that somebody just nicking the tree, or is it actually their tree that they're getting off? But as long as the tree's off the road, we're kind of happy, really.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I was going to say thank you very much for removing the tree for me at Acom to find out that the landowner had actually moved it, but never mind. Councillor Dale.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Can I say thank you for you both, because actually, and everybody who works, because they've been brilliant. And just one or two things which I'm going to pick up on earlier was, first of all, the workforce were brilliant. And the amount of hours they worked, and I know somebody said they actually hadn't been to bed for a long time. They were sitting, actually trying to organise this, that and the other, and that was for days. And people, people were absolutely brilliant, and thank you for that. And I think everybody deserves a big thank you for that. Can I just move on to the trees, the TPOs, etc. One of the big issues I've had, and I've got massive trees that have come down. And once again, I have to say to Highways, thank you. You actually managed to organise a road closure within half an hour. And that was actually debating the cost of it, because it's expensive and the residents have to pay. But in the end, I was rights of way. I had trees down from people's property over the rights of way. And there needs to be a clear policy or framework for members to see who deals actually with trees coming down and how they're dealt with, rather like about what Ms. Satan was saying, that first of all, we have TPOs. People can't get TPOs removed because actually the tree people now don't do it. Highways do it, and they have to get their own people in. There's all kinds of muddles going on, and I think this is one of the areas with the storm that has brought about the slight muddles about actually who does what, because everybody got in there to get it cleared. But in the end, people are asking. And the other thing is, of course, insurance companies want to know the funding. So I'm actually asking people, please, can we send a bill to them so they can actually get their money back from the insurance company. So there's lots of things about how trees are being managed now. And you've got a massive job on your hands with all the amount of trees the county council has on the highways, which cause problems. But I think if we could have a clear framework about between countryside department, also the highways, about how you manage trees and and the ownership and who pays for what, as somebody was saying, if it comes down. It's lovely for somebody to move it, but then you've got to have a road closure in place so it can be removed. So there is costs implied, so that would be helpful. Just to say about the leaf clearance and the highways, we do have areas where there's still leaves, but actually, David, you can't collect them every day. And I mean, hopefully we keep on saying, oh, the wind's finished and all the tree leaves are down, but actually there's still some places. And the biggest issue we have is runoff of fields, where we've got a lot of runoff of land, where there is no ditches. John, you'll recognise this. There are no ditches, or the ditches are blocked. So the runoff from the fields is coming down and causing problems on the highways with mud, and the gullies are being blocked again. I've got areas where you could actually come back every other day and try and unblock the gullies again. So it is an issue. It's not your problem. It's just it's the environment that we're living in certain areas. So just to say thank you very much, and if we could have some ideas about the trees, that would be quite helpful. So that's planning, legal, highways, the countryside. People really all involved in trees in some form. Does that make sense to you?
Thank you.
Yes,
Did you want
thank
to say anything, David, or just leave it at taking the information in? Thank you. Councillor
That would help.
Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to pass on my thanks, like everybody else and everybody else's wards. You know, we had trees down because of that mighty storm. One road in particular where a tree came down, which was Lee's Lane, where it was hanging over because it was touching the electric cables. And you know, my thanks to the county council staff for putting a road closure there quickly. But I just wanted to highlight, again, not the county council's fault, but people were just driving past the road closures while that tree was overhanging and being held up by electric cables, and you're just thinking, like, you know, residents really and drivers need to be, you know, be sensible. When there's signs up saying there's a road closure, it's there for a reason. You know, you're driving, they were driving under a fallen tree being held up by electric cables, which is nonsense. And thanks to the team who actually had to go back and actually put physical barriers up to actually stop people driving that road while that tree was semi down. But just one thing, David, there's still some on Lees's Lane. There's still some fencing up, which was part of the road closure, but it hasn't been taken away. It's just been tucked up against the wall. Can that be taken away, please? On Lees's Lane. Yeah, it just looks as I think it's just been forgotten about. And the second issue we've got is just the amount of water. And I've been in touch with Rob Murphy about this, and so has Councillor Suzanne Fairless as well. Just about the amount of runoff water around the new high school. I'm not sure the drainage is satisfactory to deal with all the runoff water that we're getting there, because it's absolutely saturated the public footpaths, and there's two houses that face onto the Allendale Road who have water gushing around their gardens and down their stairs and all sorts of stuff. It's a real problem area.
Thank you. I don't know whether you want to say anything on that, Andy. It seemed to stray into your area, the drains and that. Do you want to make a comment or not?
The drainage is an ongoing issue because the drainage systems the drainage systems that we have around the county now are that old, and obviously it's just been added to over the years. You know, that a lot of the drainage systems can't cope with what we've got. You know, plus everybody's building now, and you're getting all this land which just not soaking away the water. It is an ongoing issue, and it needs investigating. Like,
okay, I think that's it for David. So it's back to you anyway, Andy. So.
With the reactive maintenance, highway inspections are still being carried out as per standard duty. They're all up to date in the Tynedale area. Do you want us to start again? Yeah. Right, obviously the highways inspections are being carried out as per the statutory duty all up to date within the Tynedale area. The main teams on the ground are repairing any actual defects within a correct timescale. The number of defects has decreased in the last couple of months, which the highways inspectors are picking up, and we are pleased to say. The gully wagon are still on the routes, but obviously within the last couple of months with Storm Arwen, it has been seriously involved with that. Because, like as they were saying, all the trees coming down, it's not just a tree falling down. Because obviously the big root balls on the trees are usually around the pipes or around gullies and all that. And if the tree comes down, it's just pulling all the drainage out and the gullies out, which we're having to do a lot of repairs on that. That's that. With Storm Arwen, obviously we've had quite a bit of disruption within the area. We opened all the roads as soon as practically possible, and the clear-up is still ongoing. We have cleared the A68 both north and south, the A69 and all B roads within the area. And working with the hierarchy of roads, we are now on the C and U roads. And the ballpark time that we're thinking of is another 4 to 6 weeks, and we should have it all completed, unless we find anything else otherwise. Extra resources have been brought in with a tree team in each area, the 3 areas that are in Tynedale. We've had extra gully wagons and also extra sweepers, as Dave was saying, in the area to assist with the clean-up. The main problem is now with the clean-up is the gullies, because all the gullies is full of the muck and rubbish that's happened with the trees falling down. And obviously over the last few weeks with all the wet weather and the freezing and ice, all the gullies are just filled right up. We do still have a dedicated drainage gang going around, but obviously that's been taken up with all the work with Storm Arwen and repairing all the gullies and stuff that's been damaged with that. But like I say, going to this 4 to 6 weeks, and we should be just have it all about cracked, and we should be back to normal doing what we're doing. With the LTP stuff that we have, we had 28 LTP and highway investment schemes to complete, and I think we've done about 24 of them. We still do have a few waiting to be issued, and some of them have been slipped from last year to this year, but are going to get slipped again to next year, mainly around Hencourts and Allendale Road, and that's due to the demolition of the school and all that, and all the traffic that's around there. We've got resurfacing on Hencourts, we've got resurfacing on Allendale Road, and we have a flags to flags on Hencourts as well, which is probably going to try and get it slipped into next summer. But whether we can get all that work done in the school holidays, which is advisable when all the kids are off, is what we're going to sort out. I don't think it's possible, but we'll do as much as we can in there. We'll have a job on year 696 at Merlo House. That has been in the hands of legal, but I believe everything's been agreed and we're just waiting for it to be issued. But we might get the civil side of it started before the end of the financial year, but I think the servicing will slip through to next year. So that's going to be the same with West Woodburn. I think we're just on the bounds of that getting issued and all the legal documents being agreed and everything being okay. We could get started with that this financial year, but I think the servicing will be next year. Station Road Putter, that's still in the hands of the legal department. West Road at Putter, that's been issued, and we are going to start the civils on the 21st of February. And the servicing will start on the 14th of March. And that will be in before the end of the financial year. We're also going to be, we did some servicing in Barrisford earlier in the year, and there was an issue with ponding with water. We're going in on Monday to put a new gully in and relieve that ponding. A week on Monday, we're going into Priestlands. There's to do flags to flex on St John's Road. We've got 2 schemes on there which we're going to do. So that's going to be like a week on Monday, we'll go there. And in total this year, in Tynedale area, we have completed an area of just under 100,000 square metres of permanent servicing. The member scheme are all ongoing and all programmed in, the ones which have been issued to the area. We started the Pelican Crossing at Riding Mill before Christmas, but we got stopped because there was an emergency gas leak. But the works at the Riding Mill pedestrian crossing resumed on Monday this week. And I'm hoping, weather dependent, 3 to 5 weeks to get that all done and dusted and out of the way. But it's all weather dependent. We've had schemes at Four Laws, Middle to Middle Cowden, Buckley Farm to A69, they're all ongoing for signage and vegetation clearance. But with all local safety schemes like that, the road markings generally left. It'll probably be slipped until next year for the summer because it's just a waste of time road marking this time of year because it wouldn't last 5 minutes. Winter service update. We're now halfway through the season. We've had a few mild marginal conditions to deal with and also a couple of snow events. I mean, I think from Christmas Day, I think we were out every day, morning and night, up until the beginning of this week. And that was mainly due to snow showers and most recently ice, which is one of the hardest things to get rid of. Arrangements have been, obviously all arrangements have been made for the grading operations is to be done under COVID. The Lords all have cleaning kits in their wagons and they've got to clean their wagons down before they get in, before they leave for the next shift. And the supervisors are working remotely from home and attending sites if need be, just to cut down on the staff going in the office and meeting up with other staff. Also remember that the majority of the staff involved with the winter services are the same staff that's involved with Storm Arwen clear up and also the general day-to-day running, repairing potholes and all of that schemes going on. So that they have had quite a busy time of it over Christmas and, well, since Storm Arwen up until now. Grit bins have all been filled throughout the Tynedale area and it's an ongoing operation because every day we're getting reports of grit bins being empty, salt heaps being missing, and we've got dedicated teams on now replenishing everything that's coming into the area office and on our network. And that's about it for me.
Thanks, Andy, for the comprehensive report, as always. Please pass on my thanks, and I'll do it on behalf of everybody here, because I'm sure they all want to give your staff a thanks as well. Especially, as I said, to David as well, in the more inclement weather. and things like that. I've got a couple of I would like to mention first. The shops at Priestlands. Andy Oliver and Glenn Harrison know all about this. There's been an ongoing issue with a bit of an underground stream in that, and they thought the water board had fixed it last time, but it clearly hasn't. But it's at a major sort of junction, and when we have the black ice, or when we have the bad weather, you sometimes get black ice there, and it's causing a few issues. If you could just please ask if Andy or Glenn wants to give us an update on what's the next step in that, because I know it's a difficult one, but if you could pass that message on to them, please.
I know for the last, when we had all the ice, we had preempted for the ice for having the contractors in on the streets. So I think we had them on the streets of Prudhoe, we had them in the streets of Corbridge, and we had them in Hexham.
Yeah.
Just to cover any ice in the area.
No, that's good.
Because
Yeah,
the grid has, to be honest, that time of the morning, when we go out, the grid has kind of get around housing estates because there's that many parked cars in the area.
I fully understand. There's a problem there, and both the boys know about it, is that being halfway up the hill,
Yeah.
the water runs all the way down the bottom, so you don't just
does
get the black ice at the top right where the little spring is, you get it halfway down the hill as well. And the other thing I wanted to say, hen courts, obviously, I know this has been pushed back, and for reasons of the school and also for the A60, round about the A60.
It was first put on hold because we weren't allowed to close hen courts for resurfacing when they had the diversion of the A69.
Right, so I know all about that. The one thing I've had a discussion with Neil about this, and I think I had a site visit, but I wouldn't swear on that. Was that when the pavements slabs are going to be done, could I be kept in the loop on that, because we've discussed about putting some bollards, and I know there's some temporary bollards there now.
Yes.
Because unfortunately, when you put pavement slabs in, you can guarantee your wagon will park there the next day, and they're all cracked again. As happened that when St Cuthbert's was put in, and the next day they were half cracked. So if I can be involved in that, we can get the bollards in the right place, and then hopefully we'll have some nice pavement slabs and no cracked ones.
I know the design has changed a bit to put a stronger flag in there.
Yes. Yes, I think I heard that.
I think we're going to put the V70s in, which is just a thicker flag, to be honest.
Yeah.
But obviously, there's other issues around that. We're trying to get, like I've seen before, the Allendale Road resurfacing, Hen Coast resurfacing, and then footpaths. We can't do them during school time.
No.
Because it would just be a nightmare. So we've got a 6-week period in the summer where we've got a lot of work to do.
That's absolutely fine. I'm aware it was pushed back, so that's not a major problem as far as I'm concerned. So thanks very much for that. Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you, Chairman. You took the words out of my mouth. A very comprehensive report. Thank you, Andy. A couple of points. One is the road between Whitfield and Haltwhistle, between Fellhouse Road End and Wolf Hills, or Junction, and Wolf Hills Junction. That's in the local transport plan to be, a section of it to be widened. In this particular year, you didn't mention anything about that one. I presume it won't be done this year, financial year, but hopefully it's still on the cards for next year.
Yeah, I've actually got it written down here, Fellhouse Phil. That is still in the hands with designers to what they're going to actually do, because I think what's required to do is quite different of what they want to do with all the road edges and stuff like that. But that's still in the hands with the design team.
Yeah, it is going to be a bit of a big job because the ditching needs repairing, the haunch needs, well, strengthening, everything, to be able to widen the road that little bit to what it was originally.
Yeah.
The other thing was the ducting for the broadband that came from Penrith to Gateshead. The contractors made a really messy job of putting that in. They slapped it in and just went through drains, ditches, all sorts. And there are loads of places in my area, and I know there are places in other people's areas, other councillors' areas, which have suffered flooding because of it, and especially this time of the year, flooding on the road. And this time of the year, water on the road freezes in one particular place, which I have reported anyway, has had a build-up of ice building up all the time. Just wondering if you can give us an update on what's happening. Are we chasing the contractors to actually come and revamp and redo the job properly, or are we going to do it and bill them, or what's happening?
Well, what would usually happen in the past, I mean, I wasn't aware of this, is that the maintenance inspectors, when they found this, would report to Streetworks, and then Streetworks would take it up with the company, and then they would get billed for any repairs. That's what I would be led to believe, because we had the same issue in Ponteland about, about 5 years ago where they'd come through and instead of they just thrust bored through the road, but it thrust bored through all the drainage pipes and everything. And we had to go and fix the drainage. And I think the company did get billed for all the costs. But I will take that up with Glenn and Andy to see what is happening with that.
I've mentioned it to Glenn and Andy, for my patch anyway, and they know about it. Just, you know, time's slipping away, and if we don't get on top of these contracts, there are different contractors as well, from what I gather. And time's slipping away, and I'd hate to think that we went out of time and had to do it all ourselves, and it cost us the money and not them.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andy.
Right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Oliver.
Thanks, Andy. Just a question. I had a resident write to me a couple of days ago from Aidan, and they're talking about gritting the pavements. And I realise we can't grit all of the pavements out to places, you know, as far out as, and we focus on the sort of central areas. But what he did come back to me and say is, could the gritters that grit the roads be adjusted so that they spray the salt just a little bit further onto the pavement? Is that possible?
It's possible, but obviously you may not be aware, I've got this new exact track system in my wagons with the automatic gritting. Would have to go back through all the routes and rewrite that part of the route again, just to spread it a bit wider. If you could send us an email with the exact area,
I will, yeah.
and I can get the maps updated to spread a bit
Because
wider.
it's quite remote and it's not a lot of cars parked on the pavements there, so it would probably work quite well.
Yeah, if you just send us an email of the exact location. I mean, it might, because of the way the maps work, you get node points and you can see, like, I went from that point there to that point there, spread 6 metres and all that. It might overrun the area, but at least it will get gritted, you know.
That's great. Thanks very much.
All right,
Cheers.
no problem.
Thank you. Councillor Deal.
Thank you. Just to say once again, thank you very much for managing Riding Mill. I think this goes back to what you were saying earlier on about the age, and this is certainly on the A69.5. NWL pipes are now old, and we're getting more and more leaks, getting more and more gas leaks. And so the main roads, and with all the heavy traffic that is going along, the main roads the infrastructure is actually crumbling slowly, and it's causing a lot of problems right along. And I have to say, I know Kevin Maven deals with all the utilities, and I can't sing his praises enough. He is absolutely brilliant, because all the time he's dealing with another leak, another pooling, another gas leak, the whole thing, and all the way through, you are having to deal with it by stopping the work you're doing. I just think that this is part of this problem the county's going to have, because you can't suddenly make gullies or the gas facilities, the water, everything else, and never mind about your things, last forevermore, because they don't mend themselves, and it's going to be an ongoing issue. So I think that needs to be taken into account, for this council to take into account moving forward. Just as far as the fibre that ran through the A695 as well, Kevin is dealing with that. So all the complaints I've got about the fibre being put in, it wasn't put in some depth to the right place. They have been actually back to Riding Mill, they've done some work there, and Kevin apparently he's dealing with all the contractors and the main contract to ensure that's put in place. So can I just say thank you very much, but it's not easy and it's very difficult. And if you live in the rural areas, it's easier than actually when you've got a big main road, because they are crumbling and it's the infrastructure. So there's a lot of money to be spent on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Councillor Morford.
Thanks, Annie. I reported some block gullies in Four Stones and Wall before Storm Arwen, and I was told that the gully wagon was heading east from Hayden Bridge towards Four Stones and Wall.
Right.
Do you know if it's got there yet?
I don't know, to be honest. I would have to check up and get back to you. But I'll find out I can find out off the maintenance team tomorrow.
Thanks.
I'll drop you an email.
Thank you. Thanks.
Any more? Nope. Well, thank you very much, boys. You've finished for the day. Early start for you. Early finish for you. Yeah, fantastic. Just a couple of minute delay while you bring in the fire officers. Okay, people, we're moving on to agenda item number 8, which is the Northumberland Fire Rescue Service Community Risk Management Plan 2022-26 consultation. Now, hopefully I've got these names right. We have Chief Fire Officer Paul Headley, Deputy Chief Fire Officer Graham Binning, Simon Daniel and Deborah Brown, is that correct?
It is, yes.
Fantastic. Nice to get something right for once. Okay, so take it away, folks.
Right, thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for the opportunity to brief Tynedale Local Area Council on the latest draft of the Northumberland Fire and Rescue Service Community Risk Management Plan. This will cover the period from 1st of April 2022 until 31st of March 2026. I know you've got copies of it, and there was a very brief overview paper provided with the minutes, but hopefully this will just provide some additional context to the briefing paper which was circulated. As the Chair's already said, Deputy Chief Officer Binning's with me, as is Deborah, who's our Strategic Policy Risk and Performance Officer, and Simon, who's on secondment from our Community Safety Department, and is working with us on our HMI response and also the development of the Community Risk Management Plan. You'll be pleased to hear I'm not going to go through a page turn. This is just picking out some salient points with the intention of just really sort of bringing the plan to your attention, explaining what it is, why we have to do it, and invite your participation in the public consultation exercise. So we have to produce a community risk management plan because it's a statutory duty. So under Section 21 of the Fire and Rescue Services Act, the Secretary of State has to produce a fire and rescue service framework. Within that framework, which is the Fire and Rescue Service National Framework 2018, that outlines how fire authorities have to discharge their functions with regard to the fire and rescue services. The priorities are up there on the slide. I'll not run through them. Suffice to say that bullets 2 and 4 are the most relevant to the production of the community risk management plan, and they are to identify and assess the full range of foreseeable fire and rescue service related risks in their area, and be accountable to communities for the service that they provide. So the development of this community risk management plan is there to fulfil both those purposes. It's there to identify the risks within Northumberland, what we intend to do to mitigate them, what we intend to do to improve the safety and protection for our communities, but also for it to be a transparent document, and this public consultation is part of that transparency process. The consultation element is also a statutory requirement, by the way. So the current draft, as I've said, there's a number of things that each plan must have. So we've already talked about the risk analysis. So that's both the current and emerging risks. They should also demonstrate how prevention, protection and emergency response, which are the three sort of pillars of the service, are best used to prevent and mitigate the impact of any of those risks on our communities. Now, what we have is a separate layer beneath the community risk management is 3 specific strategic plans for each of those elements of the service. And if you put them together, you can see how they align and complement each other, regardless if you're in community safety, whether you're in fire safety, the legislative element of the service, or the operational response. Everything should be coming together to drive down our community risk. It outlines what required service delivery outcomes and the allocation of resources that we have, sets out management strategy. It should cover at least a 3-year period. You've probably noticed that this one covers a 4-year period. We made that change about 10 years ago, I guess. And it must reflect effective consultation and be easily accessible and publicly available. Now, that last point's really important, so hopefully when you're reading this document, if you've had a chance to scrutinise it, it shouldn't be in terms which are confusing. It shouldn't be ambiguous. We've tried to write it in a way that any member of the public, if they pick it up, should be able to understand it. We are sort of, you know, we're second, I did say last night, we're second only to the military in the use of three-letter acronyms in the fire and rescue service. So sometimes we do lose sight of trying to sort of do that clear English and just easy communication and keeping it simple. So I hope you found it a relatively straightforward read. I think it's important at this stage to say that this isn't set in stone. It's not a plan which will not change over the 4 years. It must be flexible. It must be able to respond to new and emerging risks and unforeseen impacts. COVID obviously being a prime example of that during the course of our previous strategic plan. So on that basis, what we do is every year we produce an annual update where we look back at what we've achieved, we'll look at our performance, we'll review the risk within the county to see if there's anything which we need to change or improve, and what we need to do for the coming year, and importantly, assess that change to our risk and whether that is going to influence any change to how we deliver the service or where we locate resources to meet that risk. If anything further comes up during that 4-year window when we do the annual updates, what we do is we will undertake further public consultation if there's anything which requires it during the span of the plan. We do not produce this in isolation. We work with partners on the production of the community risk management plan. And we've also utilised support from the private sector as well. So we've utilised a company called ORH, which is Operational Health and Research and Health, who support our planning process by developing simulation models of the service to predict impact of potential change on our service delivery. It also predicts the impact and change of that community risk and the resilience of our communities to that change as well. And what that does, it just allows us to have that greater confidence that we define and communicate the risks across our areas, and that we have confidence that we can evidence how we match our resources to the risk in an appropriate manner. So ultimately what the community risk management plan should be, it's about providing assurance to the fire authority, the county council and our communities that as far as reasonably possible with the resources, the budget and the capacity that we have the right resources in the right places at the right time to meet the risk. And if we don't, we've then got to look to do something about it. So we did feel that we have gone through a slight change in the way that this community risk management plan has been drafted, in so much as we felt it was important for the communities and the public to actually understand a little bit more about the process of how we've gone through that risk analysis to develop the plan. So we have included it in some detail, more detail than we have previously, just what that process is and the steps that we've taken to develop the CRMP. You'll see on both on the slide and within the plan that we've used a pretty standard definition of risk, and this is a definition which is commonly in use across the fire and rescue service sector. So there's a little bit of consistency with what other services are doing across England, certainly. So what the risk is a combination and likelihood and consequence of a hazardous event. And when we talk about hazardous events within this plan, what we're talking about is the incidents that we attained. Pleasingly, in the last 10 years, we've reduced the number of those incidents which we attained by over 20%, and we're about 11% lower than we were last year, albeit as obviously COVID's had a significant impact on a lot of our activity. What might be difficult to see on the size of the both the slide and the print within the document is that there's 10 incident types which we attained, which account for over 90%. It's 93.25%, I think, actually, of all of the incidents that we attained. So quite logically, a lot of our focus is on reducing the number and the frequency of those incidents happening, so that we can better maximise the use of our resources, save ourselves money, but importantly also keep staff free for doing the prevention and the protection work to try and stop those incidents occurring in the first place. So what we're talking about is just a little bit more about that analysis. So we look at incident response data of all the types of incidents that we've attended, which you would expect. But we also use multiple data sources relating to fire and other risks. So we use population, demographic data, deprivation data, building and road network data, everything just to try and sort of inform our thinking as much as we possibly can. And then we apply those previous models, which gives us a likelihood of frequency and impact. And we also, so those are assess these relationships to consider the risk across Northumberland. And as I'm sure you would expect us to do, particularly where that has the potential to result in harm or serious injury, we put a particular focus on those incidents which, even if the frequency of them is not as great as other incidents we attend, the actual consequential impact could be much more significant and potentially devastating. So when I was talking about the incident types, in the plan as it stands, the draft that you have, you'll notice that we spend quite a bit of time looking at about 13 or 14 very common incident types, and we'll go through the risk that those incidents present. I've just picked out one example here, which is dwelling fires. So on the slide, which you can see on the screen, the map of Northumberland, which is coloured in various shades of grey and blue, that's one of the risk maps which are produced by ORH. So the darker the colour, the more the likelihood of having a dwelling fire incident, and also, I have to say, an incident probably of more serious potential outcome for the resident. The other part of that slide is just a screenshot of some of the performance management system that we use to try and track our performance, and just really to allow us to understand in a bit more detail whether we're having the benefits in reducing that risk that we're intending to see through the development of the plan. So as I said, we've got about 12 or 13, I think it is off the top of my head, different incident types, which have got a combination of both the current ways we are looking to reduce risk, but also, because this is a continuous improvement document as well, we also want to include what we're doing, but what we intend to do to try and drive that risk down and mitigate it even further. So even when we're looking at an incident type where we've already been very successful, such as the dwelling fires, our commitment as a service is to undertake continuous improvement to cut across all areas of our service delivery. In most cases, there's always more you can do, but sometimes it then becomes a balance of applying your professional judgment on how you get the best utility and maximum value from the capacity, resources, and the people that you do have available. Not content with just looking at what we're currently doing, the plan should also be a look forward to try and identify emerging risks which may become an issue for us both as a service and ultimately for the County Council as well. So we've identified what we believe to be our main type of emerging risks, and while some of those incident types we already planned for and have responded to many times, so climate change and extreme weather events and pandemic, obviously. Particularly with climate change, what we're tending to see is those extreme weather events are becoming more unpredictable, more frequent and more disruptive. Now that will have a consequential impact. We've all just lived through Storm Arwen and Storm Barra, so this is a very current topic for us as a service, but also for everybody living in Northumberland. So this is where we are trying to get upstream of emerging risks and even risks which we're dealing with now, and trying to assess whether they're going to increase in severity and impact. Particularly on the pandemic, we've always had pandemic plans. But the experience of COVID has shown that, you know, we really do need to think again on the approach and better prepare for ourselves for it ever happening again. So as professionals, we need to be, we need just to be aware of that, assess their potential impact appropriately, and then make sure that we consider where the service can reasonably meet any increases in frequency and consequence. The bottom two of the top four, where we talk about future housing and commercial development. So we had a chat last night about recognising that as we bring inward investment, economic development and regeneration into Northumberland, with all the benefits that brings, it may well change the risk profile of the county as well. So in the development of the community risk management plan, what we do tend to focus on is looking at where housing development and commercial activity and new regeneration and economic growth will occur, to see what impact and pressures that's going to put on our current operating models. The bottom two, where I've just referenced British Vold and the Asherton Blythe and Tyne line, are good examples of that. And I can give you some reassurance that we're already deep in conversations with partners and colleagues right across Northumberland County Council on both of those major projects to assess what the implications for us will be. Now, it may well be that there isn't any implications. It may well be that the level of resource and operational cover that we've got in the southeast of the county in particular is sufficient to meet what we think the anticipated risks of both those new developments are. But that is a process which we're currently going through. So, you know, if it doesn't throw up any need for new resources, better training, different training, new equipment, great if we can cope with it. But if it doesn't, you know, the obligation is then on us to bring that back and identify it. Nearly there. I'm not going to run through that. It's a very busy slide. Both the aims of Northumberland Fire and Rescue Service wrapped up around making Northumberland safer, and how we intend to do that, as well as our 6 priorities for the for 2022 to 23 are detailed in the plan. I just want to make you aware that our current thinking is that we intend 2022-23 to be a year where we undertake a number of significant reviews and evaluations of current service models and delivery, but also focus on responding to the latest recommendations and areas for improvement which have surfaced through the HMI inspection report, which was published in December. The way we intend to do that is it'll be managed through our new performance assurance framework and the continuous improvement plan, which has been developed and validated by NCC's internal audits team. That whole performance assurance framework and continuous improvement plan will be overseen by our strategic performance board. That's going to be, well, is chaired by Graham. So we think we've got really robust mechanisms in place just to manage everything that we need to do for the next 12 months, whilst at the same time undertaking some fundamental reviews of our service and our service delivery. And whilst there isn't anything particularly significant proposed in the draft report as it stands for 2022, as we work through those reviews and evaluations, if they do throw issues up to the surface, that's when we'll obviously capture them within the annual updates and bring them back if we need to. So finally, I might not have felt like it, but that was quite a canter through the slides. Ultimately, what this is about is just bringing the community risk management plan as it currently stands to as wide an audience as we can. We firmly believe that by getting as much public engagement and feedback from elected members and our partners, we will end up producing a much more resilient and robust plan to base the next 4 years of our strategic activity on. So we would absolutely encourage feedback if you want to give us it. All of the links are on our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. The link on that slide there, if you can see it, takes you both to the plan and also the online survey. And we're just about, if we haven't already this week, Graham launched our website. So you will see some information coming out about a bespoke website which we've just developed, and unsurprisingly, there's a section of it which encourages people to read the community risk management report and feedback on it as well. So that's as much as I really want to cover, Chair. But as I say, I would just like to encourage as much feedback and participation as we possibly can, and I and colleagues are quite happy to take any questions if members have got
Thanks very much, Paul, and I'm sure people will put that feedback through if they can. It's quite a totally different often than it used to be back in my days in the service. It's like a totally.
2004 is when we started doing these.
Yeah, it is a long time ago, but it's a totally different offering. But anyway, I think we had Councillor Kennedy up first.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for a very good presentation. I have two questions. So first question is just around the risks. Obviously, Grenfell was obviously a terrible tragedy,
yeah,
and it's still in the news now that there's an awful lot of cladding, low-rise, high-rise housing and commercial. What's the risk to this county?
It's I'm pleased to say it's very low. So the current sort of Grenfell response looks at buildings above 18 metres, clad buildings. We don't have any 18 metre residential buildings. We do have multi-storey residential buildings, but none of them fall into the current categories which are subject to the Grenfell review recommendations and actions. What I would say is when Northumberland Fire and Rescue Service, as with all other fire and rescue services in the UK, were responding to that terrible tragedy, we didn't just take the view that because we didn't have high-rise, we wouldn't look at it. We did undertake an audit of clad buildings throughout Northumberland, and there were some which required remedial action, which has since been taken. So I think we're in a pretty good place in Northumberland, just given the infrastructure of the county, that we're certainly quite confident that we haven't got that as a really significant risk for us, which hence it's one of the reasons why it isn't necessarily in the community risk management plan as it stands.
Thank you. Thanks for that. The second one is more of a local and emerging issue. My ward is Hexham West, and we have the new high school and middle school on that site. The last period that we've had of storms and rainfall there seems to be quite a lot of runoff of water and flooding risk. Particularly, there's a couple of houses who I'm really worried about, because there's been new football pitches built and tennis courts and all sorts of stuff, and the water is starting to find its way, and the drainage may be not as substantial as may be required, but I think it's just an emerging process. So my question is, do you play any activity in that, as responders to that type of flooding, and do you give any assurances around like the flood risk around that school?
Well, we're not a statutory consultee on planning applications, but quite clearly we do respond to surface water flooding incidents, right across Northumberland. So once we're aware of an issue, we do work with colleagues in the county council, or whether that's local services for clearing drains or culverts and the like, or just identifying where we're repeatedly going to areas which are having a flooding problem. In terms of just the infrastructure and the planning and the build of it, we don't get involved in that, councillor, but we are involved in the response and the subsequent problem solving if it required that on what we might need to do to rectify it.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much.
If you've got a particular problem, I'm quite happy to have a chat with you about it. So we'll pick that up outside the meeting if you want.
Thank you. That'll be really helpful.
Thank you very much. And now we're on about flooding incidents. Thanks very much for the guys for turning out to incident of a Priestland's estate a couple of months ago where
Oh, right.
the drains were blocked and the flood was only about an inch below the door well. So very nice of you to turn out so quickly. Right, we have Councillor Riddle.
Thank you, Chairman. As a previous fire authority chair, I think Paul, Graham and Deborah certainly know that I'm huge supporters of our fire service here. I do think they do a very good job. And I do think that this document actually is an improvement on the last one. I do think it is more user-friendly.
Yeah.
However, I have got one comment, and I think you might know what's coming here, Paul. Why on earth are we talking about the area of 5,013 square kilometres? It was something that I certainly changed last time because, you know, the public, we don't drive in kilometres in this country, we drive in miles. And if you want people to actually relate to the area, I think it should be in square miles.
Councillor, if you would like 1,973 square miles inserted next to 5,013 square kilometres, I'm more than happy to do that. You don't need to submit a consultation.
You might
response.
think it's a pernickety point, but I do think that, you know, local communities talk about miles, and I do think it's important.
I'll apologise that we overlooked that one because yes, we did make that change in the previous document actually.
The other thing is that where you talk about the response standards, you've actually got about you know, again about an average area that each station covers. Again, I think that's maybe not really helpful at engaging with local people because, you know, people in my area know that Bellingham, for instance, covers a much greater area than that, and I imagine likewise with Rothbury and Alnwick and maybe Allendale, you know, and I think, you know, it's not really helpful to say it's an average because if we're trying to drill down and engage with people, you know, I think it would be better actually to say that they cover a range from such and such to such and such to actually demonstrate, you know, why response times are different in deep rural areas.
No, thanks for that, Councillor. And I think you make a valid point. The point which is in there, and I might get the number wrong. I think it's 344 square kilometres. One of the reasons that little bit of work was undertaken was part of a national comparator where we had a look based on the geography of Northumberland and the number of fire stations that we have, which is 15, to see what the average station area coverage was, and Northumberland sits well above the next. I think the next was North Yorkshire, but it was about 210 square kilometres. So I think you've highlighted an important issue, which I think we can address, because the reason that figure was produced in the first place maybe isn't as useful for the public as what putting that range of station areas in would be. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Bless, you know, they didn't have metric when John was at Haydenbridge Technical School. Right, Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I have pleasure in meeting the senior officers on a weekly basis, along with Colin Horncastle, who sent us apologies today. I'm sure I'm speaking for both of us to say we're always impressed by the professionalism and the commitment from the service here. They're always willing to adapt, and you've shown that recently in the short time I've been in post. In a large rural area and urban parts, you've spoken about the changes in Blythe. I don't know how many acres there are in that area, but John may pick on that one. So many challenges. I'm very impressed, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Councillor Oliver.
Hi, can I just ask, what you were having some challenges a couple of years ago with recruitment of retained firefighters, which is really important in the rural areas. How's that going now?
Just for a change of voice, Graham, do you want to answer? I'll let Graham come in.
More than happy to. A change of voice and a slight change of accent as you'll pick up. The challenge of recruiting RDS, retained duty service personnel, is a problem across the whole of the UK. I've come from working in huge rural areas in Scotland where we've had equally problematic issues with recruiting into the RDS. We've also recently recruited a further Assistant Chief Officer who has similar experience as myself with regards to the retained duty system. What we've started looking at is how flexible, dynamic and creative we need to be looking at things like contracts. What our expectation of somebody who can provide availability may be out with some of the historical requirements that they would have needed to have been considered for, and also having a really good look at making sure that anyone coming forward for recruitment has a realistic expectation of what will be expected of them from a fitness point of view, from a technical capability point of view, and us being able to be flexible enough to support people through an initial selection and pre-selection test process, rather than potentially if you fail something once, that's you'll need to go back to the start and apply again. So I'm delighted to say that we have got we've moved to a continuous recruitment process for the retained duty system, which I think is important. So we don't wait until the wells run dry. Not that I'm saying we did previously, but that we're always projecting forward with a position to be able to recruit and have people ready to come in to the service before they're actually needed. So we're running 2 recruits processes in the first 6 months of this year, which will see over 30 new retained duty personnel coming in to our target operating model, which will absolutely bolster our service delivery model. So we'll continue to be as flexible and creative and ambitious as possible, whilst making sure that we make ourselves as attractive a proposition to members of the communities of Northumberland as possible. But things are looking quite good at the moment.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dale.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the report. Can I just say, first of all, thank you very much for dealing with the fires which the children started in the summer. There seems to be a few along the valley, which I think you managed very well, and thank you for that. Can I just ask you, your report's very impressive because you've got lots and lots of varied risks you have to manage, and there are enormous amount of risks, some of them. What I don't see is a lot of you promoting yourself. Is, we're managing this, and that would be good to see on, even if it's Facebook or whatever, but something like that, because you do a tremendous amount of work, and I think it'd be important for more people to understand actually varied risks you have to manage. One of the things I was just going to ask you is just rather like Councillor Riddle. We have the A1 work travelling through our area. And do you have to work with Highways England on any specific performance indicators about managing any car crashes or anything like that? Or is that just part of the Northumberland overall delivery?
No, we're doing specifically work with Highways England on performance measures or outcomes. We work with them when there's obviously impact on the road infrastructure, which we need to be aware of in case it affects our ability to respond, but not specifically around performance management of road traffic accidents. We provide sometimes when we're looking at doing road safety analysis and reviews, we might either provide them with information or ask for information from them, so we can do that sort of evidence building and deeper dive. But it's not a regular; it's more an ad hoc basis, councillor.
Well, thank you. I just want to know out of interest to the public. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Scott.
Hiya. I just wanted to know if you offer the youth cadet scheme in Northumberland.
Yes.
Yeah, whereabouts?
Graham, Deborah. I think we're running from about six stations.
We had, I'll play the new boy card here. We had 5 cadet units when I joined the service. We've brought another 2 online, and we've been having a conversation as recently as this week with Gordon with regards to the potential of bringing another one on. So it is something that we are absolutely committed to. So to have brought another 2 online at West Hartford and Pegswood in the last 6 months, and during quite challenging times across the COVID world that we've existed in. So I think it's 7 at the moment, is what we've got.
Hexham's, we certainly used to have a branch at Hexham. I'm just trying to think from a Tynedale specific area what we've got across the west.
At the moment, sorry if I can.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Simon.
We've got the Hexham branch operating again. That's been one of our longest serving branches. Allendale is opening shortly, and I do believe there was some initial interest from Haltwhistle as well, but I think they were potentially just enjoying working, but that's in the very early stages. I can tell you what the other ones are if you wish. It's
No, just when you're in discussions with Councillor Stewart for Prudhoe, if you get in touch with me as well.
That's fine.
Thank
I mean,
you.
it sounds quite positive. Potentially by the end of the year, we might have 4 operating in the west of the county.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morford. Did you have your hand up there?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation.
You're welcome.
I think the plan is really good, and I'll be happy to encourage people to read it and do the survey. I spotted what I think is a slightly misleading sentence in the flooding and water rescue section. It's page 23 of our report. It says that the Met Office claims that as the world warms, fewer rainy days in summer are expected. Winter rains could remain as likely as they are now. But that didn't quite seem right to me, so I checked what the Met Office says, and I think you've given sort of half the story there. So the Met Office are predicting that the number of rainy days in winter won't change, that's true, but they're also predicting that the amount of rain that falls will increase by about 14%. I think that's a Northumberland figure, under a 2% warming scenario, and by 28% under a 4-degree warming scenario. So I just think you've given half the story and maybe should tell the full story there.
No, thanks for that. We'll if you could just drop us an email with the sort of detail on it or the reference where you've picked that up, we'll just make sure that we'll correct that. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Councillor Morford. Anyone else? Councillor Whale.
Thank you. So I noticed that there's quite a high rate of call-outs for outdoor fires.
Yes.
And that is something that I see quite a bit in my ward. It's kind of younger people seem to be set in them. I was just wondering kind of what the role of preventative work and like youth work is within that.
Yeah, actually. Yeah.
No pressure.
Hi, lovely to meet you all. Yeah, my previous role was prevention, so I guess that's why the role's been handed over to myself. We are doing some work with Newcastle University at the moment just to try and understand a little bit more about what's happening, what the culture is, and if we're actually recording them accurately. And we also do a range of what I'd say is preventative measures, but also some quite reactive work as well. So the prevention is alongside the crews and also our community safety department, so working very closely with colleagues and partners in particular areas where those fires are quite prevalent. Working in the community and with the community to try and identify them and get that intelligence back into the service so we can direct our work as well, but also longer term measures, so work in schools to try and influence behaviour longer term, the work with the fire cadets and that kind of thing. So we've also got a programme called Extinguish, and that is very specifically around working with young people who set fires and trying to understand why and what some of the other risk factors are around that, and working very closely with partners to refer as well. So I hope that captures a little bit of what we do.
We've actually, just to round that off, we've actually got a meeting with the new top team of the Northumbria and North Tyneside Area Command, who have just moved into post because we've been really successful with some of the joint work we've done previously with Northumbria Police, and we want to make sure that we don't lose that. So we'll be picking that whole antisocial behaviour, outdoor fire, impact on communities up with them. I think my meeting with the new chief supers in 2 weeks' time, and then we'll be getting the two top teams together. So it's work which we're absolutely committed to continuing.
And just to absolutely top that one off, we are attending the first antisocial behaviour board that has been commissioned by it's been commissioned by Kim McGuinness as the Police and Crime Commissioner, and that's the Northumbria Police area. And myself and the Assistant Chief Fire Officer are attending that first meeting, and we'll remain committed to that. So we're there this Thursday. So it'll be good to see how that shapes up too.
Thank you. Councillor Bella Sagan.
Thank you. Councillor Waddell covered what I was going to ask about education and new risks. 29% is a huge percentage that's caused by outdoor fires. Obviously, there's a broad range of causes there, and you've said that it's over the last 5 years. Did you yourself see a huge increase over the last 2 years with COVID and lots of outdoor activity, and in that increase, possibly, different causes?
Sorry, we obviously a lot of the outdoor fire fluctuation is driven by the weather. So you know, if it's nice weather, particularly around school holiday at times, we tend to see spikes. With particular emphasis on the COVID, most of our incident types dropped down quite significantly. Certainly at the first period of lockdown, what we did see was some quite significant spikes when lockdown eased. And if you speak to people from you know, land managers or people from the national parks who we worked with quite closely, what we saw was very different demographics, I guess, of people going into the countryside who possibly didn't understand the countryside code or respect the countryside as much. So you were getting a lot of people who were just wanting to get out and about because they had been confined to their homes for such a long time, and were acting inappropriately in a lot of cases. So, you know, setting campfires, using portable barbecues in places where they shouldn't be using portable barbecues. So we did see some peaks and spikes when lockdowns ended, but it's generally weather driven, particularly some of the larger incidents which we have, the wildfire size, landscape size incidents.
And that would link back to an education on behaviour programme.
Yes, absolutely. And we run these not only through school, but Northumberland Fire and Rescue Services is the national lead for wildfires. So we've developed the whole National Fire Chiefs Council's education media programme for wildfire events. So that education just doesn't stop when you're small. You know, there's a lot of education needs to go right through our communities.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, thanks to you all for coming here tonight. I know you're doing this to all the other lads as well. Yeah. I don't know, is it the same people all the time?
It's me and Paul all the time, yes. Mainly,
Right. Well, anyway, thank you very much for turning up. I just want to show my age a little bit because I actually trained on wheeled escapes. I bet you lot didn't.
I stopped using hook ladders 2 courses before I went to college.
I didn't do hook ladders. You're all right there. But I loved the wheeled escape. Anyway, so thank you very much. Thank you. Right, I'll just give a minute for these chaps to leave. Chaps and chapesses. I love the wheeled escapes. I used to love the wheeled escapes. Right then, folks, thank you very much. We'll restart. We'll now go to what was item 7 on the agenda, which is the budget 2022 to 23 and the medium-term financial plan. And we have here the leader of the council, Glenn Sanderson, and the portfolio holder for this, Councillor Richard Wearmouth.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and apologies for the misunderstanding about the time, but we're here now. So we'd like to give you a very brief update of where we are with the budget process. Tonight we won't be giving specific pledges or outlining the initiatives in the budget, But what we'd like to do is just kind of give an up-to-date snapshot of the county as it is today, some of the challenges facing the council and some of the opportunities. So it might seem strange to begin this presentation with a slide of COVID, which is actually last week's. Today it's about 7,500. But we wanted to start this way because it was this time last year that we did the same presentation, and we had the same issues around COVID then. And I think the key point for me in all of the budget that we're doing this year is to recognise and acknowledge the work of our frontline services, the fact that they got us through last year with barely a missed bin, barely an uncut piece of grass, barely an unfilled pothole, and managed to get us through that year. We are in the same position today. They have assiduously cleaned up after Storm Arwen, again without complaint, working long hours, helping Power Grid, who needed all the help they could get. And so we're starting this way because I want to just acknowledge the work of our frontline services and say that although we are still in the consultation period, and Richard and I have just done an online consultation piece with the public, although we are not completed with the full process yet, it is very much my intention that there will be no cuts in frontline services. That's to acknowledge the work that they've done and to show that we fully appreciate the way our teams have worked together across the council, and to demonstrate that we are a team that will support them going forward. This leads us to the second key point, which is around the fact that COVID has shown just how much we have in the way of inequalities in the county still. We're not alone in this. We know that other counties have the same issues. But what is sometimes overlooked is that there are pockets across the county, and that will include parts of Tynedale as well, where people just don't have the opportunities that others do. And we want to make sure that through the work that we do and through the levelling up paper when that comes, that John Smith in Blythe will have the same opportunities as John Smith in Ponteland, that they will have the same life opportunities. And that's all around skills training and so on. There's a huge amount of work going on, Mr. Chairman, at the moment around inequalities by teams of people who work well together. But I think this is the time where we need to give more political clout to this particular aspect. So this demonstrates how COVID has highlighted the inequalities in the county, and that is why the second strand of our priorities will be around doing something about inequalities. And we will begin this in the beginning of March by holding a summit, including all the relevant partners and the County Council, to see how we might work together better to actually make some meaningful change to the inequalities position.
Thank you, Glenn. The next slide covers some of the detail of the economic recovery and economic performance during the time of the pandemic and before, and you can see some of the information here on the slides. In fact, in Northumberland, we've not seen, as we would have seen in other times of economic shock, large increases in unemployment and drops in significant drops in the employment rate. It's been pretty much the reverse. It would. These slides don't include the most up-to-date information, but if they did, on the right-hand side there, you would see the unemployment rate in Northumberland now down to 4.1%. Broadly comparable with the time of prior to the pandemic, and significantly lower than the wider north of Tyne at 4.8%, and the northeast of England at 5.3%. And if you're comparing with the rest of England, that's at 4.7%. So the economic performance of the county is quite strong. We do have problem areas that we're particularly keen to home in on. So unemployment in 18 to 24-year-olds is stubbornly high at around about 7.4%. there are some hotspots around the county where that is, and I'm sure with some targeted intervention we'll be able to tackle that. And if you're looking at the unemployment rate, the number of people unemployed as of the last count just at the end of last year, it totals around about 7,885. And in terms of vacancies, vacancies are on the up with particular hotspots in Morpeth and Cramlington and a couple of other places as well. But generally, the economic performance of the county isn't at all bad. This next graph is one that officers have provided in terms of the state of income, because of course just because you've got a job doesn't mean necessarily that it's one that's covering you with a good salary, but nonetheless there has been a steady increase in average wage across the county, and we welcome that. There'll naturally be fluctuations in that. You can see this indicator is a very odd one that comes from the Office of National Statistics. I wouldn't consider it to be the be-all and end-all, but nonetheless, it's an important one. This is actually, this trend towards higher wages and a different type of economy is one that's causing us problems. So anyone who was watching the Cabinet meeting this morning, we're looking rapidly to bring in a real living wage in adult social care, and that's something that's really important, because what we're finding is people are leaving that sector either to go into the hospitality industry or to go into other flexible workplaces, Amazon or wherever. You know, you can get a good wage in those places. You can get a good wage delivering food or packages or anything now, and so we've got to fight that off. And of course, underpinning that is the fact that actually we should be paying a good living wage, a real living wage that's important, certainly to us as an administration.
So, corporate plan will be delivered at the same time as the budget. The corporate plan is a basic statement of intent, broad vision and aims. So, in everything we do, we listen to and communicate with residents. But we are trying our best to do that better. We are doing our online consultation again this year on the budget. We are doing online events on our climate change work, which have been very effective. And we have offered we've offered a cabinet member to every parish and town council meeting should they want us to come. I think our relationship with parish and town council generally has improved enormously. And I think what we saw in Storm Arwen was a much closer working with affected parish and town councils than we've seen before, and a better trust. So I do feel that we are making progress, much work still to be done. Yes, about investment and jobs, living and learning, and this brings me back to the point about inequalities. It is completely wrong that there should be an imbalance of such a degree in our county. It may happen across the world, but we want to try and do something about this in our term of office. The climate change work, as you know, is very important, and I've been very grateful to members across the council for the support that you've given us on this. We have a small but really effective team now, and it is an integral part of everything we do as a council. Huge amount of interesting work going on, big stuff and small things, hugely important strategically, very important locally. And we will be making an announcement on support to local community groups for doing local climate change work. 48 priorities in the corporate plan, and as I said at the beginning, and I apologise because I know I've said this at council a couple of times, we want to see a strong motivation towards new business and to do everything we can to help new business set up. And that means working with government, working with the North of Tyne Combined Authority, which we do very effectively. We want to support local business, and that means, for example, ensuring that town centre car parking remains free. It is important to attract local people and tourists to support local business and to tackle health inequalities. And that is around income, education, housing and environment.
So the next bit covers the overall sort of funding context, because whilst the public probably look at the council tax and think that that's what sustains the council, of course that isn't all that sustains the council. And all councils are operating in uncertain financial times. We've got budget pressures, we've got in particular perhaps pressures on things like adult social care, with a changing demographic, as people get older, live longer and have more complex health requirements and needs. We've got changes in pay, as we discussed a little bit earlier, and price inflation in particular. So we're facing challenges on the cost of our fuel, our electricity, diesel and so on. And indeed our raw materials. We've got quite a comprehensive and significant capital programme, and we're seeing increases in prices hitting that as we come out of COVID and as everybody's getting building and making up for lost time. The ongoing impact, of course, of COVID-19 on the council in terms of expenditure and income is relevant as well. And if you're watching the cabinet meeting this morning, you would see some of the hit that we've taken on business rates, albeit that's been more than balanced off by an increase in the number of houses and the income in terms of council tax that we've had there as it happens. There's pressure obviously on the national public finances as well, and there'll be a big discussion that will come in the years that are to come about how we will pay for all of the work that was done with furlough, with supporting businesses and so on, and how that can be covered in the public finances more generally. So moving on to a bit more of the process for those of you, because some of you will be new councillors who've not sat through a budget process. It starts almost the minute that the last one finishes in some respects. The government publishes always publishing a spending review last year, and they went into consultation at the end of October, and that was covering a 3-year period through to 2025. They'd set in that review, or they'd said that council tax would be limited to 2% unless you want a referendum. So if we do want to raise more money and spend more money, we can go above 2%, but we have to ask the people and we have to take that to the ballot box. In terms of adult social care, again, there was a 1% rise available over the next 3 years was what was proposed. And then right at the end, just before Christmas every year, so you go through this process within the council of trying to work out what your budget is, and then the government tells you what they're actually going to give you just before Christmas, which is a slightly peculiar process, because you've done a lot of the hard work to try and work out what you're going to do, and then they tell you what they're going to give you. So this last year gone, we've got a 1-year settlement again, and there's a real terms increase in the core spend of nearly 7%, of 6.9%, and that came. So that's relatively good for us. It took some pressure off, but unfortunately, it's a 1-year settlement. If it had been for 2 and 3 years, that gives us the time to and the ability to plan over the full length of the medium-term plan. The settlement confirmed, as has been the case over a number of years, that the council tax referendum limit would remain at 1%, and that adult social care precept would be at 1%.
Thank you very much. So, continue to invest in our future. The Climate Change Action Plan is at the top there because we feel it is really important to keep the momentum going with this and the buy-in. So that's very important. British Volt Gigafactory, there should be an announcement fairly soon on that, and the wider development of the energy park. And all I would say is, if you haven't been to Blythe recently, it really is worth a visit, because it is unbelievable how the port of Blythe has changed. There's a little tiny pile of coal left, and of course it's built its fame on being a coal exporting port. Today it is vibrant, by utilising a different sort of power, which is a renewable energy base around huge wind turbines on the Dogger Bank and the cables that are required to that and the servicing of those. And all the investment that's taking place there is a sight to see. Borderlands will give us some investment in our rural areas. We know about the visitor centre and whisky distillery at Geffren and Wooler. We are looking to do a significant redevelopment of the theatre in Berwick, for example, and then the town deals will give money to those towns who have some real passion for what they want to do in the future. And of course, the levelling up paper when it comes, which is apparently going to be around about the 24th, 25th of January, that has £4.8 billion of money in it, in that levelling up fund. We must make sure we get as much of that as we can. The Northumberland line will, in a few years, be not only providing that much needed transport from Northumberland to Newcastle and on and back, but also will develop an economic growth corridor, providing new jobs, new investment, new industry. We need to keep on with major road and junction infrastructure. Moor Farm roundabout is desperately needed, desperately needs some improvement. So we are banging on with Highways England, or what are they called now?
No, it's not Highways England now.
It's agents. Yeah, they've got a new name. Highways England. It's that lot anyway.
National Highways.
National Highways. Thank you. So we've got a meeting with them, I think, tomorrow or the next day to actually re-emphasise the need for this really important bit of work. The A1 dualling, which is temporarily on hold, and of course the Blythe Relief Road, which we need to get on with. The extra care housing is something that there is a real need to invest in. We know about the school builds in Berwick, Seaton Valley and James Calvert Spence in Amble. We are going to be making announcements about parks, public conveniences and town centre parking. We feel that parks and open spaces are incredibly valuable. They've shown their value over the last year during COVID, where people have wanted to get closer to nature, closer to the environment, find some peace and calm. So we feel there are areas that we can invest in that will make those even better. So that's something that we want to do. Public conveniences is another area that we want to invest more in. Public conveniences should be as easy to access as any other part of street furniture. It should be an integral part of a town, and I know you will agree with that. So it shouldn't be something that people are embarrassed to say, can you tell me where the nearest loo is? It shouldn't be that problem. It should be easy. And those should be of good quality and distinctly unsmelly. And then finally, to deliver investment and maintenance in our roads, walkways and cycle paths, we will be also making an announcement about roads, and that will hopefully bring some peace to my life, because Councillor Riddle is on at me all the time about the need to invest more, and he has got that. So we will be announcing that as part of the budget.
Thank you. So we're used to this part of the budget as well, which is about potential savings in terms of what we do, and it's an important part of making sure that we spend our money wisely. And in this year's budget, we're looking to make savings of 9.7 million or so, and that will give us a balanced budget for the forthcoming year, with potential provisional savings requirements for 28 million in the following 2 years, as well as part of a 4-year financial plan. The approach, as Councillor Sanderson outlined previously, is to keep reductions to frontline services to a minimum. In fact, we think that we won't make any reductions at all to frontline services, and we can provide them as they are now or better. Ensuring that the service and financial planning is aligned with the corporate plan, as you would expect. Maintaining the strong financial position in terms of our reserves, which are at a very healthy level, and we should be considering what we will do with those in some respects. Maximising income generation, you wouldn't be surprised to hear we've been talking about that over a number of years. ensuring that the council demonstrates value for money on its priorities and in investing to save, and that's a big part of what we're going to have to do in the coming years, is to make sure that we drive those efficiencies in terms of one-off investments to make sure that we get long-term revenue year-on-year savings. And the next slide is just sort of showing where some of those savings are falling portfolio by portfolio. But that isn't necessarily to say that, you know, when, this is a terminology in terms of to sort of the council speak of where do savings come from. But if we look at the local services bit, for example, Councillor Riddle will know that that's a large part of that saving actually is coming from increased electricity sales through the sale of waste to the waste to energy plant and so on. So, you know, it's a bit of a catch-all thing to describe it as a saving. When in fact some of it's actually income generation.
Okay, so that just is the final, this is the final slide, which is just to say that we are still doing our public consultation until the 21st of January. We have had, I think it's well over 200 responses already. And we are looking at everything that people are telling us. That we've asked, where do you think we should spend more money? Where should we spend less? What do we do well? What don't we do quite so well? And that all helps us to fix the final part and the final piece of the jigsaw together with the budget. And it's only right that the public have their say properly, because it's their money. So that's what that goes on till the 21st. And then we will be publishing the budget towards the end of January, early February. It will go to overview and scrutiny committees and the local area councils. And the final version will be decided at full council on the 23rd of February. But if you have any questions about any of that, do please ask any questions and we will do our best to answer. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Glenn, and thank you very much, Richard, for that presentation. And I know you were doing it to all council, local area councils as well. Right then, we'll open the floor. We'll have a first question of Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. That was very positive, and it's great to see a focus on the economy, because ultimately that sort of underpins everything we're able to do as a council. Richard, you mentioned stubbornly high levels of employment amongst that sort of younger age group. So I was just interested to know what we can do. And I'm assuming that's mainly in, probably not in this area, not in the Tynedale area, it's probably mainly in the southeast. But what can we do to address that? And then in this area, in our own area, what can we do to improve employment prospects and enterprise in particular in some of the more rural areas beyond just tourism, which has a limited capacity defined by the number of beds available and so on. So
sure. So I'll try and answer that in three parts, perhaps. So when I was alerted to the fact that we've got this stubbornly high point on youth unemployment, well, let's call it, I asked where it was and where the hotspots were. One of the places that was identified was the Croft Ward. There'll be others that I think will principally be pockets in the southeast corner. And we've spoken about this in various council meetings before. Bridgefield is going to be coming here. We're going to have various industries that will land with that as part of the supply chain, totaling maybe 8,000 jobs. When we went through the presentation across the county, we've maybe got 7,000 or so unemployed people, or people who are not active, probably a little bit higher than that. Just landing some jobs in a big factory doesn't make those people who are economically inactive magically employed. There's a huge bit that goes with that, and that's about education and skills and making sure that we're getting that right. And that isn't necessarily done through a sixth form. In much of the Tyne Valley area, and certainly here in Morpeth, there's huge numbers of kids go on from year 11 through into sixth form and on and into university. That isn't necessarily the route that's going to deliver interruption in that youth unemployment, which is really going to be only tackled if we get the other bits right on education. And so when you're looking at Blyth and in Ashington, we're going to see investment in Northumberland Northumberland College. It's on the list of one that's of the further educational facilities. I think there's about 18 or so that are going to benefit from a multi-billion-pound investment package from the government. You've got projects like the Energy Central Learning Hub in Blythe, which is looking at significant investment in STEM, about passporting, kids who maybe who want something that's a bit more vocational and a bit less academic. That we're going to have to make sure that those routes are there available to them. And thankfully, if British Fulton, if JDR Cables and some of these other big companies that are setting up in that southeast corner are wanting to achieve these to get people in through the door and doing these jobs, they're going to have to be pretty proactive about linking up with that, and they are being. And so that will do a lot to assist us in that, and that's where those stubborn areas are. That doesn't necessarily mean that's going to cover the whole piece. So moving on then to sort of your next bit of the question was, what sorts of things are happening in the Tyne Valley and Tynedale area that maybe you're going to help as well? And so Glenn mentioned in his discussion regarding Borderlands, there's Borderlands Place money available for places like Haltwhistle, for example. I think Bellingham's on the list, if I recall correctly. So there's intervention there in terms of money. In Hexham, we've got already the Heritage Action Zone breathing life back into the high street, and there's more that we can be doing around that, and we've got to make sure, as Councillor Sanderson was referring to, that we've got the infrastructure in place, whether that's more parking in places like Hexham to allow people to come in and shop, because we know that we've got pressures on stuff like that as well. So lots of stuff like that. But then the bit that's really difficult to crack, and the bit that Glenn and myself and an increasing section of others are trying to take on, is the rural bit, because you remember a previous leader of this council going on about rich farmers this and that and the other. What a load of nonsense that is. As we all know, there's deep-rooted disadvantaged communities within the rural area. You can go to places like Wooler, you can go, and there'll be plenty up in Bellingham and Warden and others, where there are low wages, it's seasonal work, you struggle to train yourself to take advantage of the opportunities that might be there, and the government's going through a huge thing now of elms, of rewilding 30 by 30 and all this stuff. And as we come to tackle climate change and we come to tackle the biodiversity crisis that we've got going on, there's no better place than Northumberland to be able to do some of this stuff and to grab that advantage. And with that will come money and the prospect of a better job, a more sustainable job, and a more sustainable route for farming, if we get it right. And if we don't, we'll have an issue, because we're well live to that as well, that if EasyJet come and buy a load of land and put trees on it, then that doesn't do anyone any favours. So let's not be having that route.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Councillor Scott.
So when you talk about the unemployment in the youth, what do Northumberland County Council offer in careers support?
So there's all manner of things. I mean, ultimately, the best thing that we can do is attract new jobs and investment in the first instance. So they've got somewhere to go, because you can do all of the training, you can do all the other bits that are imaginable. But if you haven't got a job to go to, that's the fundamental problem. Putting in place the educational route to attain those jobs is really important as well. We're doing and have been doing work with Kickstart, if you're familiar with Kickstart, and if you want to get some more information on that, we can get officers to provide some more on that. And we do a lot of work with our own apprentice schemes and so on. We're quite leading in that as a county council, and we've got some great apprentices that go through our programs, and we're happy for them to we're very happy for them to then go on and do other things. We can be a good conduit for that, really. So I could go on for hours about it, but we can happily get you some written notes so that you can get a bit more of the detail if you like.
So do we still have careers advisors working for Northumberland County Council?
I would have to defer to an officer to get you the exact detail, but I'm sure that we've got all sorts of things that run. I know that we do a lot of work with DWP, for example. So when we talk about the Blythe Town deal, and it'll be the same in Ashington, and it can be the same with some of the other towns, that DWP come along and sit in those meetings and inform how our thinking's going about as a collective. You know, so that involves, in the case of Blythe, it involves the town council, it would involve the county council, it would involve local businesses, big employers, the port, the catapult, and then, as I said, the likes of DWP employers, the universities, Newcastle and Northumbria University as well, and Northumberland College, and those places, those entities all come together to try and build a package that works for everybody, and particularly those that are finding it difficult to get into employment.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's nice to hear. You know, I think some of the things you've really touched on are some things that I'm really interested in. You know, like listening to that you're looking at the demographics there, the 18 to 24s, the NEETs, you know, the not in education and all that type of stuff. That's really, you know, those people are a real risk. You know, if they don't get into work and actually contributing to society, you know, their future is worrisome, and actually they become, you know, potentially negative to society, which is not what we want to happen. I was attracted to what you said about the carers' pay. Certainly as a receiver of services from this county, as with regards to carers, you know, I've seen how it's been difficult for those who supply care and services actually to retain. It's been really difficult. So that's really welcome. Nice to hear, Glenn, about the toilets. You know, you've got an invitation, an outstanding invitation to Hexham, as you well know, and I keep getting asked about this every month, Glenn, at the Hexham Town Council, so I can't let it go away. But we would love some investment in Hexham on our toilet provision, because some of them aren't the prettiest, I must say. Certainly, talking as a mayor of Hexham and a county councillor as well, you know, I would love to see some sort of like partnership working with regard to tourism. You know, the Hexham Town Council is very ambitious and wants to really inject some pace and ensure Hexham and the wider surround, you know, that we are a town that happens, and we want people to come. And, you know, and that generates income for all our hospitality, hotels, etc. You know, we've got a new hotel opening very soon, which we welcome, alongside those car park and things that you've mentioned. So there's quite a few attractive things to me, I must say. I never heard anything about Northern Powerhouse. Is that a faded word nowadays and just replaced by levelling up? Never really knew what the Northern Powerhouse just sounds fantastic, but I've never ever seen it deliver a sausage, to be honest. And I've worked in government for forever. And I don't know if levelling up is just the new title of Northern Powerhouse, but we'd really like to see some endeavours of what that is, and actually injecting something into to the northeast. I did have a look to see what was happening with the A1. I mean, obviously it's not in Tynedale, but it is the major artery for this county, and you know, and I don't care which party you're from, we know as Northumberland, as Northeasterners, that we've been let down. You know, that the A1 is a country road in comparison to what it should be. You know, a major city like Newcastle and the rest of the northeast going to the Scottish capital, and we have that disgrace of the A1. You know, and I think all of us as councillors, as politicians, should do everything in our powers to get behind that A1 to be what it should be. And that's a minimum, and I mean an absolute minimum, to be jewelled before anything else, because it's I mean, God, it's just a disgrace. But anyway, there we go. But yeah, some attractive things, I must say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take those points. As far as the Hexham Blues are concerned, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get around for a while yet, because I'm still recovering from this operation. But if I can't make it, then perhaps John Riddle might. I'm sure he will. But no, all I'll say, serious point, is that the toilets are going to be, that there will be an action plan, and there will be real progress on doing up as many as we can, and Hexham will get its fair share. I honestly, much as I would like to come and look around the toilets with you, Derek, I don't really need to, because I do know them all. So, I mean, not intimately, but you know what I mean. You'll just have to probably trust me on this, that we will be investing in Hexham as well as other towns in Northumberland. Thank you.
I'll take John up on that offer that you've passed on to me.
Thank you very much. There's enough where you can't refuse, John. Okay, I believe we have Councillor Dale next.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the presentation. It would have actually been quite good if we could read it, and if we'd had the documents, so we could have followed it through, and I could have been more demonstrative about some of my questions. What I will say is that I know it's a snapshot. However, we do have to take into consideration the rise in RPI and all the other costs that are rising. Now, one of the issues you're talking about is inequalities. There are massive inequalities. However, those inequalities, and quite rightly, if you look at the employment and the level of the jobs, etc., but a lot of those are short-term, so the employment has gone down. But those short-term contracts are not meeting that rise in the RPI, all the electricity, all the costs, etc. that go on. And we are still having this massive gap in inequalities. We've got food banks, more people have real issues. Now, that is, I'm glad to see you're actually dealing with what you call inequalities, and you've actually realised that. But to say you're just going to do it like that, I'm sorry, it's long-term. It always has been long-term. For donks, ever. If you really want to read something really good on inequalities, your government asked Alan Milburn, who is the Minister of Health, who lives in Stocksfield, who's a very able person, to write a brief, or in fact, it wasn't a brief, it was a report on inequalities and how to manage, and he wrote it, and the party just didn't want to read it. Now, that to me was wrong, because you should have taken consideration. I'm quite happy to ask Alan if we can have a copy of that, if it's of any interest to you. But he is somebody who's very experienced in how it has been brought up in Town Law, and how he managed to progress to probably, as everybody will say, even the Conservative people, that he was the best, probably one of the goodest, best Minister of Health. So I would ask you to look at that. As far as the certain things about adult social care, great. I think that's the problem throughout all these things. And actually, if you work in social care, it is a very, very difficult, and it is not rewarding financially. And I think that has to be recognised. I go into homes, I see people, and actually the way people have to manage very difficult situations is extraordinary. You've got your 48 priorities. I don't hear the LEP, I don't hear the North East commercial business people, etc. involved. I actually work with them over apprenticeships and everything else, and they're very, very cooperative. Very quickly, 1 year settlement again. Now, no wonder the county councillors find it difficult to forecast exactly where they're going. The county council is enormous. It's got a massive turnover, £1 billion. It's got to look to the future, and that's not short term. because short term is not going to progress the county anyway. Even if you look at the drainage systems and all these things that in years to come are going to have a massive capital input you'll need to put in. Climate change, great, but once again, Nick will probably tell you, you need a lot of investment there if it's going to make any difference, working probably with infrastructure and everything else. And the one thing you've left out, not even mentioned, broadband. The broadband roller out of broadband over this area has stopped, basically. Now, it's not your fault, it's the government's fault. And I watch it, the government will give you, you're going to put £10 billion, £1 billion in the next week. They cut it by 4. Then they say, oh, look, we're giving you another one. So they're taking it up by another one, and all the way through. And the amount they're putting in is diminishing. Now, I have to say that the County Council Broadband Group are fabulous. They are brilliant. We've actually managed to progress in our area only because of hard work and actually going out and working with people all the time. However, there are a lot of areas that aren't. And before, you're talking about investment in the rural areas to bring jobs in, we've got ample of estates, ample positions where you can have businesses run from home, but the communications is appalling. There's no broadband. If it is there, you can't slow. I mean, I don't even have any proper broadband from the county council. They're paying a fortune to give me a service, right? And it isn't, but the county, and it's not the county, but they need to get hold of government. Why, I have to say, are they actually in the Department of Culture, Media and Sport? They should put in the culture of business. It's the businesses, this is the people who should be actually understanding why we need broadband in the rural areas. You're talking about lifting people's lives in the broader areas. You need broadband. And, you bring in about the electricity, etc., etc. So there's some things you need missing there.
Councillor Dale,
Sorry.
are we going to get to any questions to the...
I'd like a report on future broadband. I want you to explain to me what the 1%, what the settlement, 1 year settlement is going to be, and how you're going to manage further years, and the rest I'll ask you at full council.
Well,
so I'm quite interested to know a lot about the budget.
Thank you, Councillor Dale. I did scribble some notes down, and I look forward to more questions in full council as well. Yeah. Where are we? Right. Very valid points on inflation. We covered a bit of that in the discussion, and we're grateful to the government for at least for an above inflation increase in the core spend at 6.9%. Ultimately, you're quite correct that a 1 year settlement doesn't give us the long-term solution that we want, and I think that that's something that would be common across all local authorities of all types, whether they're metropolitan or county or what have you. We want a longer-term settlement. But in the absence of that, what is it that we're doing? We're determined, or I'm certainly determined to get to grips on transformation, and really we've got a transformational fund which is quite substantial and significant in terms of the budget already, and we're going to be doing some deep dives into our businesses, for want of a better expression, the various parts of the council business where we really need to go into an awful lot more detail than this sort of cursory look that we've been doing for many years now under all administrations, probably, where there's a look and it's right, okay, well, we need to find this amount. All right, well, we'll do this and we'll do this and we'll do this. That in itself doesn't drive the sorts of efficiencies that you need, and the finance team through Jan Willis have been really, really good on that, and we've got a fantastic officer team that's, I hope, going to really tackle that, and it'd be really interesting to see. I would encourage scrutiny to scrutinise them in due course and make sure that they're making progress on that. In terms of the LEP, I sit on the LEP, and along with Councillor Sanderson, obviously I sit on the North of Tyne Combined Authority. There's lots of partner organisations that we're working with continually to achieve things across the county. But there's things that are probably missing as well, as we've lost the funding. Well, not lost the funding, as funding's gone from the European bracket, and it's going to come in through shared prosperity. So we want to see some things come about either through the LEP or through the North of Tyne to replace them, and particularly thinking around some of the stuff around the rural economy and those projects and schemes that allow small businesses to get inward investment in the lowlands and uplands rural areas. There was a few other bits. Broadband. I've sit almost with an expert in the room in the form of Councillor Oliver. I'd almost dare not give an opinion because you'll know 10 times better than me probably what's going on. So Councillor Oliver, if you want to give a bit of an opinion on that, that's fine. Happy for you to do so.
Yeah, so I think the government are now doing what they call the outside in, and it's a national procurement. Northumberland, I think we got that into the first group of areas to be covered, and we should see some spades in the ground pretty soon, and that procurement exercise I think is underway. On top of that, there's all of the stuff that Councillor Dale's ward has benefited from, which includes the Borderlands money, and all of that money was spent, and then the second phase was also spent, and that went into supporting individual hard to reach community schemes generally in more rural areas, and Tynedale got a significant slug of that, plus all of the extra investment that we got from the BT Gain Share that we've put back into broadband over the last 4 years. So there's still a long way to go, and Councillor Dale's quite right to highlight it, but I'm optimistic that we'll make really good progress.
Thank you. Yeah.
Respond to that. I think.
Excuse me, through the chair, please. Thank you very much.
Sorry, beg your pardon. Can I just respond to that? It's the fact that the government keeps stopping and starting the procurement process, and we get halfway down the line, then they pull it. I've actually managed to keep ours, but other people haven't, and people are getting very cross about putting a lot of effort into this, and then it stop-start, and the government's done it for years. Every government's done it for years. So you go through this. We've gone through the whole way. I've brought broadband into Stocksfield, won the broadband prize, got first broadband in England, right? Now, I know exactly how it works, but it's hard work to get there. And communities sometimes haven't got that intelligence or effort to actually manage to do that. And that needs more help.
Thank you. I wouldn't propose to add to that. I don't think that's particularly incorrect. I think just picking up just quickly on a couple of things that Councillor Kennedy mentioned as well. Dueling of the A1, of course, there's been a short delay whilst there's some, I think it's environmental audit work being done on that, but we would expect an announcement in June confirming that funding subject to that process. And hopefully, through the union connectivity work, that we might see full dueling up to Edinburgh. That would be an incredible thing for this county. And Northern Powerhouse is perhaps more of a sort of higher level thing. It's about the sort of the linkage of, isn't it, of cities and towns and regions to make something that's akin to London in terms of a population through rapid transport, through rapid interconnection. But the interesting bit actually was probably links with something that Councillor Dale was just saying there, which is as much as levelling up, which is the new terminology, is seeing the sorts of changes that Councillor Sanderson was referring to in Blythe and will do in due course in Ashington and will do in our other towns as well. So getting broadband right is the ultimate levelling up for the rural economy, because it means that you can stay at home in a beautiful place like Northumberland and work as if you were in the centre of London or Newcastle or wherever else you would choose to be. And so we must get that bit right, yes.
Thank you. We also have Councillor Sharp.
Yeah, we've all heard a lot of this sort of talk over the last lot of years in these budgets, and I'm sorry that I haven't been able to read anything in it today. But, you know, I have to agree, particularly in my ward, you know, people haven't even got a mobile phone reception, you know, and then never mind working from home, you know, and I was sort of, this is something I was trying to get some more detail out of it. I would totally endorse what some of the previous speakers have said. You know, we've had a lot of money over the years. Certain areas have benefited, you know, Rothby and so forth. But certainly in the areas I represent, there's still a huge deficiency in, never mind broadband and internet and all the rest of it, mobile phones and everything else, you know. It's a huge problem. And if people are going to operate businesses and so forth in rural areas, we talk about this national parks, as Glenn knows as well, you know, we definitely have to improve the that element of it. The other thing which, you know, we continually hear about, and I'm interested in what they are this year, but obviously we're kind of, you know, and you're not wanting to divulge at the present time, is on efficiencies. I mean, we've had to make big efficiencies over the past 10 years, 15 years, whatever here. And I'm interested in the figures you presented earlier. £7.2 million or 7.8. I wasn't sure if you said 7.2 or 7.8 because I couldn't see it, and I still can't see it on there. And you said over the next 2 years we'll have to find 28 million. Where, to my mathematicians, that's 14 million next year and 40 million the year after. This year we're only trying to do efficiencies to 7 million and savings. I'm a bit concerned, and I take Councillor Dale's point about the one-year settlement, which obviously is a thing, but I presume to get this budget to sell the things which you want to sell, particularly in the southeast. And I'm not saying I'm against it, because I'm not against it as such. I'm all for Northumberland benefiting, but I think what we're saying, we're going to be using a huge slice of balances this year to get a balanced budget to save on 7.2 million or 7.8, whereas in the past we've needed to save, the next 2 years we'll find 40 million each year. I just don't follow that logic unless I've picked it up wrong, and I just want that clarified. I don't want to spend any more time going through individual comments I have. I'm just more interested in the efficiencies, because that's been a thing which I've been concerned with for years, ever since I lost Hayden Bridge Fire Station, as you all know, years ago, which I was really absolutely paid off about, you know. I'll not tell anybody, and you all know I was devastated by that, and I'll not have that again, things put in this budget which we don't know about at these meetings.
No, absolutely. Well, ultimately, the best people to describe exactly how savings and efficiencies and so on work really are the lead officers. You know, I can go and give an opinion and a certain amount of detail on it, but they're the ones that will be driving it, and you'll hear from them in due course. Obviously, this is the part of the route along the road to the budget itself. And I would comment, as I did to Councillor Riddle, in referring to Councillor Riddle earlier, that you know, some of that is income. So there's 1.5 or so million pounds of that is just additional income from this electricity sales prices. When you're looking at the longer term, you're quite right, and you mentioned Councillor Dale's point about a one-year settlement. Part of the process that Nick Oliver will be particularly familiar with is this very bizarre way that I find about finances and local government. I never quite understand the way that this happens. That really, in my own businesses, okay, you have the understanding of how much money you're going to make. You've looked at what you've done previously. You project it out, and you have a good plan as to how you're going. But in local government, it's completely different, and eventually you end up getting this little pot of money from here and a little pot of money there, and before you know where you are, this saving level that you're supposed to be attaining actually often is cancelled out by various bits that government adds in and delivers down to you. The bit that we know that we can deliver ultimately is our council tax, and to an extent, obviously, the business rates that we know that will come our way. And so when we've got large employers like British Volt coming, we've got some great amounts of business rates coming from them in due course that we can plan in for the future. We've got the house building programme that we know how roughly what our council tax base will be, but some of those other bits are unknown. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we're not in fact making £28 million worth of savings. It'll be substantially probably less than that, but you know, without that long-term settlement, you can't guarantee it, and that's why it's got to be described in the way it's described. On your other point, what was the other one? The other one was phone receptions and broadband. Can I make a suggestion? And I don't know when you last had them, Chair, but maybe you invite the team along to have a bit of a discussion, since it's such a relevant point to your lack. It might be interesting for new councillors in particular, who maybe haven't had
I'm more than happy to put that on the list and put it forward to the local area chairs, and I'm sure Nicola will take a note of that. Yeah. Are you happy with that, Alan?
Sorry, could I just add one quick point?
Yes, absolutely.
I think John Cooper would be more than delighted to come and talk about broadband and mobile. So I just need to pick up the point that Alan made there. This is a preliminary look at where we are now. We haven't finished the consultation, but we will be soon. We will be presenting to scrutiny either all the committees or one group of all members, and that will have all the things, and there'll be nothing hidden in there. I don't think, unless you've hidden something in there that I don't know about.
I think the opportunity to hide anything at that stage completely vanishes in any case, because you've got to be able to read it all.
I just wanted to assure you this is not like a, you know, there will be full opportunity to go through the whole thing with a fine tooth comb.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming along to do that presentation tonight, and I'm sure you'll enjoy your other 4 or 5 you've got left. You've only got 3 left, have you? That's fine. Right then, we're going to move on now to item 9 on the agenda, which is the local area council work programme, which is to note. As you all know, of course, if you have anything you want to add, you pass that information either myself or just 1 second, Councillor Sharp, pass the information to myself or to Nicola here. We'll make sure it goes to the procedures. It goes to the local area chairs and gets put on or not put on the agenda. Councillor Sharp.
Yes, Chairman. I see it's kind of on and off the local area work programme, and it's regarding the representatives on the Hull-Bristol partnership. I mean, if there's nobody willing to do it, I'm quite happy to represent the county council on the partnership and give a vacancy up for the area which I represent at the minute, which is Greenhead, Gilsland, Featherstone and all that area, and try and get somebody else on from that area. So if nobody else is particularly wanting to do that, I'm happy to be elected by the county council, so it gives another seat to somebody else.
I don't think we'll hear any objection from anyone here for you to take that up. Consider your hand well and truly taken off.
I know, I'm just trying to be helpful.
That's absolutely fine, Councillor Sharp. I'm sure Nicola's made a note of that. Just 1 second.
I think we'll have to put that on the agenda for the next meeting because it's not really urgent business.
Okay.
Fine, I'm not being bothered, I'm just trying to be helpful for going
that's
forward.
absolutely fine. You're very helpful, Alan. No worries at all. Councillor Dale?
Yeah, can I just ask, I know Councillor Kennedy's been talking a lot about what's happening in Hexham, and obviously Hexham's one of our towns, close towns. It'd be interesting to find out what's actually going on. So I just wondered whether we could have a presentation after the area committee meeting. It'd be very valuable, I think, for everybody, because Hexham is
Sorry, I'm lost. You want to have a presentation on what? I must have missed that.
Sorry, Hexham. The developments going on in Hexham and the overall picture that Councillor Kennedy was talking about the funding and everything else.
Okay.
And what
well,
the,
I mean,
how the process is going, so people can actually be part of or understand what's going on.
Well, I mean, you're welcome to ask the officers on that, but we have various working groups within Hexham, the Hexham Hub, which is for Hexham councillors. There's a strategic sites groups, so there's plenty of sites, but you know, it's not opened up to everybody on the council. You've got 67 councillors. We can't spread all that information about Hexham out to them. However, that does not stop you yourself individually approaching officers and asking them for information.
I just thought it would be a good opportunity for people to come in and.
That's absolutely fine, but there are working groups existing on that.
Fine, that's just an opportunity missed, I think.
Right. Date for the next meeting. Sorry. Councillor Morford.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions about the work programme, and then after you've answered them, a suggestion, if I could. I was just wondering about the, there's a reference to off-street EV charging points in the work programme. I can't find out. I think it's at the start of the work programme. So it's page 37 of our report.
Page, sorry, what?
37.
37. Oh, yeah, I've got that. Yeah, sorry. Right.
it says at the top to be listed off-street electric vehicle charging points. And I'm just wondering, does that mean off-street or does that mean on-street?
Well,
is that what it means? Okay, fine. Fine.
You've got
And
that?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
The second question was that there's a reference to the cycling and walking board, and I'm just wondering what's planned.
Well, I mean, that'll be decided by the area's chairs, but we have the LQIPs, so I would imagine it'll be a presentation of them, the local cycle and walking and infrastructure plan, panel, sorry, not plan. I would imagine it'll be a presentation of them. They've done presentations before. I mean, obviously, it'll be before your time here, Councillor Morford. But, so, unless Nicola knows anything different, that's what I'm expecting it to be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Could I make a suggestion for the work programme as well?
Sorry?
Could I make a suggestion for the work
You can,
programme?
as I said, either
Yeah.
to myself or to Nicola. You want it now or do you want it in an email? You're happy to take it now, yeah?
Thank you. It's to do with cycling, but not to do with LC whips. I was wondering if we could have a report on the maintenance schedule for cycle paths in the Tynedale area. It'd be nice to see a map of the cycle paths and a schedule for their maintenance. Is that something that might be possible to ask for?
Right, well, I mean, the answer to that would probably be that that's a question you can ask the officers for anyway, rather than have to have a presentation. And if you want to ask the question of the officers, find out the information, then think it's important to share with the rest of the committee, then by all means put it back to us. And once that information is sought, we'll put it out there. But I think initially you should go to the officer first.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much.
Councillor Sharp.
Yeah, Chairman, I don't think that's an unreasonable request from Councillor Morford. I mean, you know, we're all involved with the cycle route, you know, from sort of Hainbridge to Corbridge, yourselves and Nick and everybody else. I don't think that's an unreasonable request to bring back a report to a future meeting and have a presentation at this meeting.
I never said it was an unreasonable request.
I'm just trying to.
Yeah. I understand that, and I think if Councillor Morford finds out,
you know,
Councillor Morford finds out exactly what it is that he wants to bring to the local area council, I don't have a problem with that at all. Which I thought I'd made it clear and Nick accepted, but maybe I didn't. Councillor Oliver.
Chair, just on that cycling thing, I think there's sort of two different things we're talking about here, because Councillor Morford mentioned maintenance schedules, and I think it's a little bit like roads. There isn't really a maintenance schedule. It's all done on a reactive basis. So if there's an issue, you report it, and hopefully it gets fixed. The wider point that we've just sort of then moved on to, which I think we're all interested in, is one of development of cycle routes, and you know, and that's something that there is work going on, you know, and obviously I think we'd all support that.
And that will come in probably the LQIP's presentation. I would suspect that's what will happen anyway. Councillor Fairless-Hagan.
I know it doesn't say vacancy on the outside bodies. I'm just wondering if I could put my name forward for the Queen's Hall Arts Trust.
Seconded. Sorry, where's this?
On page 5 of the... Page 8.
Right.
Chair, I'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting. We'll look at the vacant positions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And get them.
I mean, that would be coming up anyway, wouldn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
It'll be put forward, and then obviously I shouldn't think there'll be much opposition to that, to be honest, but it'll have to go through the process. It's Tuesday the 15th of February at 4 p.m. I'm just going to say it to it, it's 99% certain it's going to be here, and if anything changes I'll let you know on that, but I would suspect. Do you have any urgent business? I have no urgent business. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a nice, Happy New Year. I think I've already said it, but if I haven't, I'll say it again.